You ever open a file you weren't supposed to find? I mean, really see something, like it reached out through the screen and wrapped its cold fingers around your spine? Maybe it was a flicker in a security cam you didn't install, or a name in an HR folder that never should have been there. Maybe it was just a voice, low, uninvited, whispering something from the speaker when the room was dead silent. If you're watching this, it means you've already crossed the line. You're in. This isn't a story, it's a wound. And I'm not telling it to you like a narrator. I'm not reading it to you like fiction. I witnessed it. I watched it happen, piece by piece. I tried to warn them, and they laughed. Until she walked into the boardroom and did something no one, not the lawyers, not the shareholders, not the goddamn CEO himself, ever thought possible. They called her the cleaning lady. They thought that word made her invisible. But that woman had the power to unravel their entire world. And she did it without raising her voice. It started on a Wednesday, though no one remembers it that way anymore. Most people say it felt like a Sunday, but wrong. Like waking up in your childhood bedroom only to realize you never lived there. The building itself was all glass and steel and ego, perched above downtown Atlanta like a goddamn crystal spear. The company was Kramer, Fox, and Tilling, one of those legacy firms that pretends its lawsuits don't have body counts. 39 floors, 3 cafeterias, and one woman who pushed the trash bin from hallway to hallway, humming gospel like it kept the walls from breathing. Her name was Mabeline, just Mabeline, no last name, no badge, no employee file. Yet she was always there. They'd joke she came with the building. I was interning for the marketing execs, chasing coffee orders and dying by 1,000 passive-aggressive emails. The place reeked of lavender and money and high-functioning alcoholism. But that week something cracked. It was the little things at first. The clocks in the East Wing all stopped at 4:06 p.m. on the dot. No one fixed them. The elevators opened to floors that didn't exist. Blank concrete slabs with dust-covered chairs facing the wall. Then there was the baby. Someone brought it. In, no one remembers who. HR denies it, IT has no footage, and there's no record of any employee on maternity leave. But for 1 full hour on Thursday, we all saw a baby sitting in the conference room, alone, silent, until it turned to the glass wall and whispered, "Let her in." We laughed, nervously, told ourselves it was a prank. Even when David, our floor supervisor, went missing that night after being the one to pick the baby up. Even when all they found was his shoe, placed neatly on top of his locked car. People start skipping work. But I stayed. I had to. Something told me this wasn't a haunting. It was a countdown. Then came the Friday meeting. Boardroom B11. The CEO, Rick Callahan, was preparing his quarterly death march. Mabeline was in the hallway, dragging that same squeaky cart she always had, humming "His Eye is on the Sparrow" under her breath. I remember her stopping outside the glass, just standing there looking at them one by one. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She just stood there like she'd already lived this moment before. And then, before anyone could ask her to move, she walked straight into the boardroom. No knock, no hesitation. At first, Rick laughed. Of course he did. "If this is about the trash, sweetheart, we've got interns for that." That's when the lights dimmed. Not flickered. Dimmed. Controlled. On a digital timer that had been cut from the building's master system last spring. And she looked at him. And she said one sentence. "You think the building's yours, Rick, but you've just been borrowing its memory." Silence. I saw the marketing VP's hand shake as he reached for his coffee. I saw the lawyer, who never blinked, suddenly clench her jaw like someone had just punched her in the stomach. One of the shareholders started murmuring, just syllables, like a record stuck on scratch. Then Mabeline reached into the pocket of her cleaning smock and pulled out a manila envelope. Unmarked, untaped. Inside, photos, documents, audio logs. She laid them on the table one by one. Faces turned pale. People stood, one man puked into a trash bin. And Rick stared at the first photo like it was the last thing he'd ever see. What was in it? I don't know. No one does. The cameras. Shorted out the moment she pulled it out. Every USB in that room corrupted. But they say it showed something from before the company was formed. Something about the land the building was on. A fire in 1913. A woman who disappeared. A girl buried. Without a name. One shareholder recognized the girl, said she looked like her mother, then started screaming, and Rick? He backed away, slamming into the glass wall like a cornered animal. "This is extortion," he muttered. "You can't do this. You're nothing here." And Mabeline? She smiled, not like someone who'd won, like someone who'd waited. "You fired my great-grandmother for being too dark to serve food to your white guests," she said. "Then you buried her in the basement and built a goddamn skyscraper on her. Name." She slid a document across the table. The room fell into a hush. It was a deed, a transfer of ownership. Not new. Original, signed in 1912, predating every known record. Mabeline's great-grandmother had owned the land. Still owned it. And now Mabeline had the right. Legal, binding, witnessed, and filed under a clause that no one had ever dared to dig up until her. Rick collapsed into his chair, sweat soaking through his $1,000 suit. The others stared. And Mabeline? She turned around, stepped into the hallway, and handed her mop to a janitor who wasn't on the payroll. I tried to follow her. I really did. But when I turned the corner, she was gone. Just gone. No trace. Except for the humming, drifting from the air vents, soft and slow. His eye is on the sparrow. Since that day, the company hasn't been the same. 3 board members resigned. The CFO went missing. The building? It's been strange. People say they see her late at night, standing in the hall just outside the glass, watching. But here's what no one knows, not even the board. That envelope, the one she slid across the table, I saw it again, yesterday, on my desk, with a sticky note in handwriting I don't recognize. It just said, "You're next." And inside was a photo of me from a year ago, standing next to a woman I swear I've never met, wearing a cleaning uniform, smiling, and she was holding my hand. The photo on my desk sat there like a bleeding wound, cold, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Me, smiling, hand in hand with a woman I swear I had never met before. A woman wearing that same faded cleaning uniform Mabeline had worn the day she fired the CEO in the boardroom, like she owned every secret that building tried to bury. But how? How could this be real when my memory screamed there was no such moment, no such picture? It was as if someone, or something, had rewritten the script of my life while I blinked. A quiet terror settled in the pit of my stomach, the kind you feel when the ground beneath your feet isn't solid anymore, but a shifting wet fog that might swallow you whole. I picked up the photo again, trying to breathe through the sudden constriction in my chest, but then the air around me seemed to warp, and that familiar hum, the same song Mabeline had sung, started crackling through the speakers in my apartment. Only it wasn't a song. It was broken, glitching. Like someone was cutting in and out, whispering words I couldn't quite catch, but they felt close enough to tear open old wounds I didn't even know I had. My phone buzzed on the table, the screen flickering with static before the caller ID resolved itself into a name I hadn't seen in years. Lisa. Lisa, the one person I thought I could trust, though the memory of her felt as slippery as smoke. When I answered, her voice came through strained and hesitant, like she was walking on ice that might break beneath her. "You don't remember, do you?" she said, and my throat tightened at the sound. "You're already too deep in this, too close to something they don't want you to see." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but before I could speak, the line went dead. No goodbye, no static, just silence, and the photo still staring back at me, accusing and unreal. I sat back, feeling the walls of my apartment lean in. That's when the first doubt slipped in, the seed of something far worse than fear. Was it all just me? Had I seen what I thought I saw? Or was I unraveling? That strange, creeping sensation that your mind can't be trusted anymore, That your memories are puzzles missing pieces you don't know you lost. I started combing through everything I had from the company, the emails, the documents, even the security footage I'd managed to pull through questionable channels. But each file was corrupted, scrambled beyond recognition. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses, flickers of shadows moving where no one should be. Other times, a voice would crackle in the background of an audio recording, saying my name in a tone so cold it felt like ice against my skin. I tried to share these fragments with Lisa when she finally called back, but she brushed them off. "You're chasing ghosts," she said, voice tight with worry, "and the ghosts are winning." But who was she really trying to protect? Or was she the one slipping away? One night, the line between waking and sleep dissolved. I swore I heard Mabeline's voice again. Not humming this time, but whispering clearly from my phone speaker, a place it shouldn't have been. "Remember what they buried," she said. "Remember who holds the keys." The room smelled of old paper and dust, and the photo I'd left on my nightstand had shifted. It was face down, something scrawled faintly on the back I hadn't seen before. I flipped it quickly, heart pounding, but the message had vanished. Or maybe I never saw it to begin with. It was like the building itself was bleeding into my reality, dragging me deeper into a labyrinth where nothing was certain. Lisa reappeared that night, knocking at my door without warning. She looked different, edgier, her eyes darker. "You need to stop looking," she said, voice low, almost a plea. "There are things buried for a reason. This isn't just corporate secrets or haunted buildings. It's something older, something that gets under your skin." Her hands trembled as she pulled me aside, sharing half-remembered stories of people disappearing after asking questions too loud, of files erased and replaced by empty folders labeled confidential. She talked about the truth behind what no one tells you, the real unsolved mystery that no headline would dare touch. But even as she spoke, I caught the flicker of something in her eyes, a hesitation, a shadow of something she wouldn't say. Was she trying to protect me or keep me blind? And then a noise, faint but unmistakable, a soft static in the corner of the room, as if unseen voices were whispering in a language just out of reach, blending dread and familiarity until I wasn't sure if I was losing my mind or breaking through to a truth so vast it didn't fit inside my skull. We sat there, two fractured souls caught between what was real and what was whispered in the spaces where memory dissolves. And just as I reached for the photo again, the lights flickered violently, plunging us into darkness. When they came back on, Lisa was gone, vanished like a ghost, leaving behind nothing but the echo of a warning. I still don't understand. And me? I'm left holding the photo, the cold weight of something I can't explain, with a question hanging over me. What if the truth behind what no one tells you is that some memories aren't yours to keep? What if what they don't want you to remember is the one thing that could save you? But at what cost? The moment I stumbled onto the old filing cabinet hidden behind the maintenance room's peeling drywall, a flicker of hope surged through me, like a shockwave. I ran my fingers over the dust-covered folders, worn leather edges cracked from years of neglect, and found a label scrawled in nearly illegible handwriting. Mabeline's Records. For the first time in weeks, the cold knot of paranoia loosened just enough to let a sliver of light through. The idea that maybe, just maybe, the answers weren't lost in some infinite void, but locked away in tangible proof, waiting to be unearthed. It was intoxicating. I pulled the first folder out and flipped through brittle papers filled with cryptic notes, schedules, and, most shockingly, handwritten journal entries. Her voice seeped from those pages, raw and unfiltered, revealing a side of Maybelline no one outside those walls had ever known. The way she described the CEO's arrogance, the company's creeping darkness, and that final explosive confrontation in the boardroom felt like a confession whispered in the dead of night. I was certain this was it, the hidden truth, the puzzle, piece that would snap the whole nightmare into focus. But then, as I dug deeper, one particular entry made me stop cold. It wasn't the language or the handwriting. Those matched what I'd seen before. but a name scrawled at the bottom of the page, ink smudged as if written in haste. Diane. Diane, a name I didn't recognize, but that unshakable feeling in my gut said she was more than just a footnote. There was something about it that twisted my insides, a memory glitch that buzzed at the edges of my consciousness like static in an old radio. Suddenly, I was somewhere else, somewhere I hadn't been allowed to remember. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of mildew and something metallic, fear maybe, and a shadowy figure lurking just beyond the flicker of a failing light bulb. Diane was there too, young and trembling, whispering a name that wasn't hers to say, just like Mabeline had whispered something no one else heard before vanishing. And then it hit me. This wasn't just a mystery about a disgruntled cleaning lady and a ruthless CEO. This was a pattern, a loop of buried secrets and silenced voices that stretched back decades, a repeating nightmare threaded through my own fractured memories. The way those files lined up with stories I'd buried deep, stories I hadn't even realized I'd forgotten. Something in me screamed that I wasn't crazy. They lied to me. The past was hiding behind the present, locked in a dance I couldn't break free from. But just as I was ready to breathe that fragile sigh of relief, the room shifted. The air turned viscous, the edges of my vision darkening as a new awareness crawled in. Something vast and watchful lurking beyond the veil of what I could see and understand. I felt it then, a presence as old as the walls around me, colder than the draft slipping beneath the door. It wasn't a ghost or a person. It was something else entirely, a weight pressing against the fragile boundaries of my mind, whispering doubts so insidious they could make you question your own name. It had been here all along, watching, waiting, feeding on every fear and fractured memory, tightening its grip with every step I took closer to the truth. When I looked back at the folder, the name Diane was gone. The ink had vanished as if it had never been there, leaving the page blank but for a faint, almost imperceptible outline, like a shadow fading in the early dawn. The evidence I had thought I uncovered, the memory I had dared to trust, slipped through my fingers like smoke. The room was silent except for the faintest hum in the background, almost a lullaby, but twisted, a siren call to look again, to question everything. And as the walls seemed to pulse with an ominous rhythm, I realized the nightmare wasn't just behind me or ahead of me. It was inside me. The kind of danger no one warns you about. The kind that's woven into your very soul. You're not crazy, they lied to you. But the truth? It's darker and more tangled than any of us dared imagine, and it's only just beginning. Now, as you look back over everything you thought you knew, you'll see it all differently. Because this story, it's not a story at all. It's a waking memory, and the deeper you go, the more you realize there is no way out. You weren't alone. That much became clear when the first message slipped through the static, barely more than a flicker on a screen, a sequence of numbers and symbols so precise and deliberate it could have been mistaken for a glitch if you weren't paying attention. But you were paying attention. You always had been. Because deep down, you sensed there were others caught in this same web, watching from the shadows, their lives fractured and folding into one another like the pages of a book no one dared to read aloud. They had been silent for so long, too cautious to reveal themselves directly. But now the veil was thinning, the walls of secrecy beginning to crack. In the darkness of your isolation, you began to see their presence, shadows in shared dreams, cryptic patterns etched into reflections, coded images that felt like fingerprints left for only the most careful eyes to find. It was as if this whole nightmare was designed for you to piece together, an invitation or perhaps a warning. You were right all along. You were never meant to unravel this alone. The messages came more frequently, sometimes in bursts, old, grainy, footage surfacing from 2 decades ago, footage that the government never released, carefully suppressed evidence of things that should have stayed buried, faces you recognized, faces you thought had disappeared, flickering briefly in the background of these haunting clips. And the symbols, they were everywhere, carved into walls in abandoned buildings, sketched in the margins of yellowed notebooks, and blinking cryptically on screens where no one should have access. These signs felt like a language you could almost understand, if only you dared to look deeper, to trust the fragmented memories clawing their way back to the surface. It wasn't just about what you saw or what you heard. It was about who you thought you were. Because with every revelation, the boundary between identity and control started to blur. Were these memories truly yours? Or had they been planted, nurtured, manipulated to keep you tethered to a story someone else was telling? Then came the third voice. Quiet, distant, but unmistakably real. An observer who slipped in and out of the cracks in your understanding, offering a perspective that felt strangely grounding amid the chaos. They spoke not with certainty, but with a wary truth born from witnessing too much. Their presence was like a faint pulse beneath the surface, a tether that pulled you back when you threatened to fall into the abyss of doubt. What they revealed was unsettling, that the forces at play were not just shadowy figures behind corporate facades or bureaucratic walls, but something far more insidious, something embedded in the very fabric of memory, lurking in the mechanics of perception itself. This wasn't just about secrets, it was about control, about rewriting the stories we tell ourselves to keep us compliant, to keep us silent. The observer warned that every fragment you think you've pieced together could be a carefully placed illusion, a layer of the conspiracy, designed to lead you exactly where they want. And still, the story pushes forward, deeper into the labyrinth of your own mind and the tangled web of those who came before you. The weight of what's hidden presses down with every step, and the silence from the watchers grows louder, more urgent, as if the very act of knowing threatens to shatter the fragile order they have maintained. The fear is no longer just about being lost in a maze of forgotten memories. It's about realizing that maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to find your way out. So you keep watching, keep piecing together the fragments, because turning away would mean surrendering to the darkness that's been lurking since the beginning. And as the signals grow stronger, the signs more insistent, the question remains, who are you really listening to? And who is really listening to you? You stand on the edge now, the fragile veneer of your world splintering beneath the weight of everything you've uncovered. It's no longer about the who or the what, but the why. Why this darkness took root, why it clawed its way through generations, why it chose you to carry this fractured burden. The truth isn't a neat revelation wrapped in triumph. It's a raw wound laid bare, a mirror reflecting not just the horror outside, but the shadows within ourselves. It's a confession whispered in the silence of a heart that has known betrayal, and love, fear, and hope, all tangled together like the roots of an ancient tree choking the soil. You realize now that this mystery isn't a story to be solved, but a question to live with. Because in that question lies the essence of what it means to be human. Fragile, fractured, and endlessly searching for meaning in a world that offers none. Your breath catches as you confront the choice before you, to turn away and retreat into the safety of ignorance, or to step fully into the unknown, risking everything for a truth that might destroy you or, if you dare believe, save you. It's a terrifying awakening, like surfacing from a dream you didn't know you were trapped in, gasping for air that tastes both foreign and familiar. The lines between reality and illusion blur, and you realize the greatest mystery has always been yourself, the memories you trust, the identity you cling to, the stories you tell to hold the darkness at bay. And here, in this moment of unbearable clarity, you allow yourself to be vulnerable, to confess the fear that has shadowed you all along, the fear that even when the truth is uncovered, the pieces might never fit, and the nightmare might simply begin again. There is no neat ending, no final answer handed to you on a silver platter. Instead, there is the pulse of the unknown beating beneath your skin, the whisper of something ancient and watching, waiting for you to decide what comes next. The mystery deepens, the questions multiply, and you know this story, your story, is far from over. As the last echoes of doubt and revelation settle around you, the darkness doesn't retreat. It shifts, promising new truths, new betrayals, new awakenings just beyond the horizon. So you breathe and listen. The world waits. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time. Remember, some truths don't want to be found.